Hey friends, it's Jenny here. Today we have a very special, a very unique, a very different kind of video for you, but it is a highly important story that needs to be shared and it needs to be told. Today we are going to be talking with our friend Heidi, who has stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. Please watch this entire video because there is a lot of information that needs to be shared. We want to share Heidi's story in hopes that it saves lives, that it educates and it brings some much needed research funding to that stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. Hey friends, welcome to Gardening with Creekside. Today we have a very special video to share with you because we are here in the Signature Garden to talk about a very, very important topic, and I have two sweet special guests with me. I have, of course, you know, our beloved Greg Newald from Power Planter. He is here with us. And then we have the very special guest, Heidi Punky Brown, who is a great friend of Greg's, and it is really all Greg's fault that we are here today to talk about the very important topic of metastatic breast cancer. And so, without further ado, Greg, since he was the one that got this ball rolling. So let's just jump in and let's just talk about first, how do you know Heidi? And then why are we here? What are we doing?
So Heidi and I have known each other, I don't know, pretty much my whole life. Mm-hmm. Her family farms, my family farms. We probably farm, I don't know, 10, 15 miles apart max.
Okay.
And I was on a local grain elevator board of directors, and Heidi happened to be their controller. And every month, there was my least favorite part of every month at the board meeting, which was the financial review. Ah. And it wasn't because Heidi gave the financial review, it was because like we would go over stuff so in depth, I wanted the broad overview. Right. It's good, it's bad, it's indifferent. And I will never forget, Heidi walks in and they said, okay, you know, financial report. And Heidi just says, well, I just want to let everybody know I was just diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. And you could have heard a pin drop. And then she did what Heidi always does, and she just, here's the financial report. And you know pretty well, I don't sit still very well. No. And I immediately went into, what? And what can I do? How can we help? All that sort of stuff. So for the last several years, every year I ask Heidi, hey, what's up? How are, you know, who are you supporting? Who do you want to support? Mm-hmm. I didn't so much care if it was Heidi's medical bills or a group or whatever. And we've done several things year after year after year. And I have sat in on more breast cancer meetings, Zoom calls, you name it, which sounds kind of weird because generally it's myself and 4, 5, 6 women. Mm-hmm. And I almost feel like I'm now a breast cancer expert, as weird as that sounds. Mm. And as you know, I was out here this spring and I just kind of casually brought it up. I just want it to be a national, everybody needs to know about this. Yes. I mean, you know my wife, Lisa, I've got 2 daughters. You know, I got females on my staff, you name it. Everybody's affected by this and most people don't know it. Mm-hmm. In one way, shape, or form. And there's really, really great ways to combat this early. Mm-hmm. And then there's unfortunate things like Heidi, where she probably had it for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. Probably. And had no clue. Mm-hmm. And so getting the word out is more important than anything else. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So just to kind of give you a little bit of a brief overview, so we're going to hear Heidi's story. We're going to talk with Heidi and things that you need to know, like right now. If you have a female in your life at all, you need to know these things. And Heidi has become a great advocate for awareness and education, so we're going to talk about that. But also, we're partnering with Medivivor because Medivivor is... are they the only research where they donate money to stage 4 breast cancer research?
Medivivor is unique in that all their proceeds go to researching metastatic breast cancer. Okay. Because what's really sad is there are lots of donations that come in for breast cancer. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is used for awareness, which is good. I think most women, I think majority of women know once you hit 40, you should definitely get a mammogram. Sure. But the rest of the research that happens goes to researching early stage breast cancer. Mm-hmm. And on a national basis, for what's donated to general breast cancer causes, only 3% of it goes to researching metastatic breast cancer, which is the only breast cancer that kills. Early stage breast cancer is very survivable, very treatable. But once it gets to stage 4, like I have, it's considered terminal and incurable. So the fact that only 3% of the research dollars are going to stage 4 breast cancer, it doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
So Mediviver is out there. There are other places that work towards this, but Mediviver is unique. Every cent of their proceeds goes to fund research grants for people researching metastatic breast cancer.
Perfectly said. So Creekside, along with Power Planter, we have teamed up. So on October the 13th, there is a national, worldwide, Light Up MBC.
Right, and it coincides with National Metastatic Breast Cancer Day.
Perfect. So Mediviver does an auction. So this is an auction where all sorts of great things are donated, and then you sweet people come in and you bid on these items. And all of those proceeds, all of that money is going to go
to Mediviver.
To Mediviver
so
directly.
Therefore, it all goes to researching metastatic breast cancer.
Exactly. And so when Greg came to us and he was like, hey, what can we do together? How can we partner together? And so we are donating 2 tickets to the Signature Experience. That includes not only those 2 tickets to the Signature Experience, which if you're not familiar with that, you can check out the video link because we have a lot of fun with that. But it includes 2 nights at the White Rose Manor, which is a lovely bed and breakfast. Greg was just there this morning.
Yeah, it's right up the road and it is awesome. I mean, breakfast.
And breakfast
takes an hour to an hour and a half.
Yeah. So this is some wonderful stuff. So a huge thank you to White Rose Manor. If you're coming to see us, stay there. And then we're also donating a lovely auger from that. So that will all be on the Light Up NBC auction link. So we'll have all that for you so you can go and bid on that, and all of that money will go straight to Mediviver.
Yes.
So let's just dive into with your story. So you were diagnosed with what you said 3 days before your 50th birthday?
Yeah. 3 days before my 50th birthday. About 20 days before my 50th birthday, I found a lump. And so in the process of first having another mammogram and then diagnostic, so it turns out 3 days before my 50th birthday, I was not only told I had breast cancer, but I was told I have breast cancer that had already spread. I had innumerable masses on my liver, my right adrenal gland covered with a tumor. It was all throughout my bones, specifically in my sternum and my spine. And it was a shock because I had dutifully had annual mammograms every year since I turned 40. So I'd had a mammogram, 9-10 months before this diagnosis. And when you're diagnosed stage 4 from the start, they call that de novo. So I'm de novo stage 4. And what I since learned is that I have extremely dense breast tissue. The only way you can learn that you have dense breast tissue is through a mammogram. So it's important to get your annual mammogram. But then if you have dense breast tissue, you have to have something else. You have to have an ultrasound or a breast MRI. And don't let anyone tell you that, oh, I go to a place and I get 3D mammograms. Still not enough. The mammogram technology is great for people who don't have dense breast tissue. And it's great because it lets you know that you have dense breast tissue. But beyond that, you need additional help.
And when you go to your mammogram, they should tell you, because there's categories, right? Like the density of your breast, like A through D.
Right. And for me, I live in Illinois. So it wasn't until the year after me that it was required to tell people that they had dense breast tissue. And actually, it just became a law this last week that every state in the United States, they have to tell you your category of your breast tissue. But unfortunately, they don't tell you what to do. So we hope that people that will see that and ask their doctors. The other thing that's really important, and I didn't know this ahead of time, usually you get a letter sent out from your clinician or wherever you had the mammogram. And it'll just say, everything's great, we'll see you next year. the way they word it though is that there's no evidence of disease or something like that. They're very, clear with that. And I think we're very happy to get that news. I think you go and have any kind of test and you're just so relieved. And so that's all usually people do. So what I want people to do is to go in electronically to their actual medical records. And you should, on any test, you should want to see the actual lab report, the radiology report. And you need to read that. And if you don't understand something about it, you need to research it on your own or go back to your doctor and ask, because that is going to tell you more than just a letter that says, everything's fine, we'll see you next year.
Sure, sure. And so if somebody gets, so it was interesting because you're talking about, like, you both are in Illinois, obviously you're 10 miles from each other. We're clearly in North Carolina, and we were talking yesterday and you were saying that in Illinois, that your laws, even letting that know, but then like medically wise, like your insurance will cover certain tests, but in North Carolina, there's no laws.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no national standard on guidelines for such things, not for anything. So it depends on what state you're in. So I live in Illinois, and in Illinois, they were required a couple of years ago to tell you if you had dense breast tissue. And starting a couple of years ago, Illinois makes sure that insurance has to cover those additional tests without a copay or a deductible for it. But that depends on what state you live in.
Right.
So we looked it up for you. And in North Carolina,
there's nothing.
They don't have to cover it for insurance.
Right.
So unfortunately, that leaves women in a tough spot. If you have dense breast tissue, and depending on the state you live, you might hear something and learn that you need additional testing, but your insurance isn't going to cover it. And it's a very expensive prospect to decide, do I need to really get a test that really tells me if I have breast cancer or not, when I'm going to have to pay several $1,000s out of my pocket?
Sure. And that's a hard spot to be in.
Right. And so there are groups that I'm involved with. We're working to get laws passed. There was one introduced in 2023 that would require all states their insurance to cover it. We don't have that passed yet, but we're working on it.
Gotcha. So when you were first diagnosed with that stage 4, what your prognosis was, 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, pretty dire.
And how many years ago was that?
That was 5 years ago in July.
5 years ago in July. So if you haven't picked up on it yet, Heidi's a little spicy, and we say that in the most loving, like, positive way possible. And we were talking yesterday, and you said something very profound to me. And don't get me, but you said, I'm only going to die once.
Yeah, my goal, I think all of us only die one time. And if I focus on when I'm going to die and how I'm going to die, then I'm dying more than one day.
Yeah.
So trust me, I have my really dark times with this, but mostly I pull myself out of it because I'm here today.
Right.
So I don't know what's going to happen to me a month from now, but right now I'm here with friends and new friends in a new place, and I choose to live today.
Right. And not to continue the crying, but Greg, you told a story about what you did for Heidi.
You're going to make me cry now.
I know, I'm sorry.
So, I mean, and this is the thing, we talked about this last night. So, Heidi, I think you have two choices, and Heidi just said it. Choice one, and if it was me, because Heidi is not me, I would go curl up in a corner and feel sorry for myself. Yeah. And that's pretty much what I wanted to do when she made that statement at that board meeting. Like, I wanted to go curl up for her.
I did do that, rather a matter of fact, didn't I?
Yeah,
I kind of had to, though.
Yeah, but that's also you. And
by the way,
and so she doesn't do that. It's unbelievable, because that's what she said. She has 100 times matter-of-factly said, Greg, this will kill me someday. And she doesn't hold back. I mean, that is what it is. As harsh and weird as, like, Heidi and I, but so what we did in the past was we teamed up with a company that had bulbs, and we would put one of our pink augers in there, and we put some pink tulip bulbs in there, and it was Heidi's kind of thing. And
but how it originally started even before that is right after that board meeting, Greg approached me and he gave me a small version of a pink auger and bulbs. And my husband Dave and I planted hundreds of pink tulip bulbs that fall of 2019. I was just hoping that I'd be around to see them bloom in the spring of 2020.
And that's the thing. So we sent these things out, and Heidi put this letter in there from Heidi, and it literally said in there, it was called a Heidi's Hope Box, and it said, you know, in essence, my hope is that I'm here to see the tulips pop through the ground in the spring. And that like brings it to like reality. I mean, in North Carolina, I mean, I'm not saying it's always green and lush and beautiful, but in Illinois, it's pretty drab in the winter. I mean, the trees all lose all their foliage. Everything is brown. I mean, it's cloudy. And even reading those, it's been a couple of years. I still have one sitting in my office, and every time I read, every time I say it, like just to like look at Heidi and say, she literally wrote, to see these pop through the soil, like it still gets me.
And I think there's an analogy to a bulb too, because I still look at a bulb and I have no idea how you can throw that in the ground right before a very harsh winter in Illinois, and then all of a sudden, you know, you look out one day, because I live on a farm near here. All of a sudden, you look out one day, and there's shoots coming up. Like, how does that happen?
Right.
And so, to me, it's kind of a little form of a miracle and a little stance on hope.
Absolutely.
So I just keep putting bulbs in the ground.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that we kind of talked about too that is so crazy important, we brought this up, is you go get your annual physical.
Right.
And you get a blood test, to your point. And they give me a blood test that's 5 pages long, and I have no idea. I've got a scale on there with pretty, you know, green and white and red. And I'm like, oh, that's great. I'm green and white and everything. Even now, when they put whatever your breast density is on this thing, like, you have to go ask. And I guess my question is, because I don't know the answer to this, on that scale, like, at what scale do you go back to your doctor and say, no, you're going to get an ultrasound?
Okay, well, you definitely, if you're in the 2 highest categories of breast density, you have to get further testing. You
That's
have
a C and a D, right?
C and a D. I'm a D, and I didn't know this. So by the time, so I felt the lump, and they gave me a mammogram. Still, I mean, they didn't see anything in the mammogram, but I mean, they all realized something was there. Got a diagnostic mammogram, still they couldn't see anything on the diagnostic mammogram. It was only when I was in there and they were doing an ultrasound. And I'm a lot more of a medical expert now. But at that time, I mean, I was laying there in that little room in our local hospital, and I saw this little thing, like this little blobby thing with tentacles, and I'm like, that is probably not good. You know, and then the technicians get really quiet, and I'm like,
that's really not good.
That's really not good. So when it all was said and done, and I had a breast MRI, I ended up with a 3-centimeter tumor on top and a 5-centimeter on the bottom, connected with tentacles, spider-like tentacles. And yet nothing showed up in the mammogram or the diagnostic mammogram, because dense breast tissue shows up as white on a mammogram, and cancer shows up as white. So if you have dense breast tissue and you get a mammogram, trying to find cancer in there is trying to find, one snowflake in a snowstorm. You just can't see it.
Right.
So if you're C or D, you need to go get an ultrasound or breast MRI. Usually what they'll do is alternate those. So every year you still get the mammogram. That's still the baseline, and it's the entryway into everything. But then every 6 months you should get an ultrasound and then a breast MRI.
And it was interesting because we were talking about, because so many times we talk about breast cancer and like family history, and if you have a family history, you're at a higher risk. But officially, you don't have any family history of breast cancer.
No,
you look back and suspect that possibly.
I suspect that my maternal grandmother died of metastatic breast cancer. I don't have proof of that.
Right.
But back in the early 80s, she died of bone cancer, which is really rare for an adult. And I doubt that she ever had a mammogram in her entire life. I suspect, but that's so long ago, and that was, she was in her 80s.
Right.
So no, on any kind of risk scale, I don't fall into a high risk category.
Yeah. And that's because you did everything right.
Right.
Like, you did everything that you were supposed to do. And we were talking yesterday and I was asking, so if you had, probably you had cancer for two to 3 years.
There's no way of knowing because all I had were mammograms. So
Right.
we can't, I have
Sure.
requested them. I went down the rabbit hole of looking and getting those on a CD and looking at those. I don't know why, just to try to make some sense of all of this in my head. You can't see anything. My breast oncologist says probably with the extent that it traveled, I had it at least a couple years. We'll never know.
But you really felt fine.
Yes.
Those 2 to 3 years. And in fact, the day that you found the lump, had either just run or you were training?
I was training to run a 10K.
Yeah. So you were the picture of health.
I had a lot of back pain, which is explained now by the extensive meds through there, but I was also in my 40s, carrying a little extra weight, tired of working long hours.
Yeah.
You're not going to go look for anything there. You're just going to think, oh, I'm middle-aged and I have a bad back.
Yeah. Right. So that's the importance of understanding the density of the breast tissue, and you are unabashedly, you just go and talk to anybody about it.
I do. I talk to anybody. I talk to strangers and ask them if they know their breast density. And I think it's kind of embarrassing for my family sometimes, but that's what I do. I work with My Density Matters, which is a group that works just for informing people about breast density and trying to pass laws to change it. And I have little papers from them, and I stick accounts payable clerks all over. If they get a check in the mail from me, they also get something about breast density.
Which is so
everywhere
important.
I go.
Yeah, and we will link that website because they have pictures that show you the different levels of breast density, so you can actually see the difference between the 4 different levels. And
they also, My Density Matters has instructions on how to access your medical charts online.
Yes.
Which is important. It's really important that we actually look at our actual lab and test results, not just get a verbal or everything looks fine letter. You want to actually look at the results, and we show how to do that. My Density Matters also tells people like talking points with your doctor. So if your doctor, if you find that you have dense breast tissue and you talk to your doctor and you're like, oh, that's really common, a lot of women have it, and you don't have family history, but you know that you should get it, that website has talking points on how to approach that. We all have to advocate for our own health.
Absolutely.
But I will say, I tend to have a strong personality. How you would put that, Greg?
That's polite.
But it is hard to advocate for yourself when you are wearing a gown in a hospital setting.
Yes.
It is hard to stand up for yourself. So you need to get a little help and practice a little bit. And that website kind of gives you some things to do. And I talk to people and guide people all the time now, because they'll say, well, I got this, but my doctor said, don't worry about it. And I'm like, you go back to your doctor, preferably today.
Yes.
You call and, you say, well, I have this friend.
That's right.
And this is what happened there.
Yes, absolutely.
And I would say too, Heidi is a sitting ray of hope and light when it comes to this.
No one has ever called me that.
We need to talk to your husband about
Ray
this.
of hope and light.
But you're
sassy ray of hope and light.
We're told you wouldn't be here today.
Yes.
By medical professionals. You're here.
Yeah.
I
I'm
mean,
officially a unicorn.
Yeah,
That means I've exceeded, if you exceed 5 years, that's pretty
You've been through
rare.
about everything imaginable. Brain
lot.
surgery. I'm not going to go down the list.
I had brain surgery in April.
Yeah.
And you just completed your 88th round of chemo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last week.
Every 3 weeks. Every 3 weeks.
Yes. Forever.
For eternity.
So,
yes.
I can't thank you enough for being you. I can't thank you and Jerry enough. And I think if it's a husband, a brother, a son, a woman, I had this conversation with my own wife because of Heidi.
Yeah.
And it's a little weird, like you said, like, hey, hon, you need to go do this. And so I think this is a huge issue, and it circumvents women. It gets all the way to men. I mean, men can get breast cancer as well.
They can.
But you've got to have the conversation. And like, that was my goal, and I seriously cannot thank you two enough, is I just want to get the word out. Like Heidi said for the longest time, like, I want to be the last one diagnosed. I mean, sadly, we know she's not going to be the last one and is not the last one to be diagnosed. But
specifically, I want to be, I wanted to be the last one I heard diagnosed in the manner that I was, that it was already late stage.
Yes.
If you're diagnosed early stage, you just, it's treatable, it's curable, it's great. But when you're already at stage 4, I mean, so it had already been lymph nodes, liver, bones. It went to my brain the next year. I've had 12 brain tumors. I had number 12 removed this year. The cat's out of the bag. So I try to educate people, because I thought that I was aware. I mean, I thought I was like pretty knowledgeable and did all the testing that I was supposed to do. And I don't know why it isn't common knowledge for everyone to know this. 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in her life, 1 of 8. So right now, think about how many women you know. Divide that by 8, and that's how many are going to get breast cancer. That's just any, breast cancer.
Sure.
Every day, 114 people die of metastatic breast cancer in this country.
You said it was every 13 minutes.
Yeah, every 13 to 14 minutes, someone dies. It's unacceptable.
It is.
And I spent a few days after the diagnosis wallowing in self-pity, and then I spent a couple weeks just mad as heck. But those are not, it's not productive. And so for me, it's not always easy to put my story out there, but if I tell my story and I spread awareness on breast density and metastatic breast cancer, my hope is that other women will know. Look for the report. If you find out you have dense breast tissue, know you're going to get additional tests. I just don't want to have to sit and hear of someone else who was diagnosed stage 4 de novo from the start, like me, just because of dense breast tissue. And I have met many people, I mean, some of them right there in the chemo pod with me, and they're telling the same story as me, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It just shouldn't happen.
And then, I mean, you said this too yesterday, the research, this is a pet peeve of mine. When people say you give money to research, and it never goes anywhere. And I understand where people come from. And then Heidi is here today because what she's doing now, medically, chemo-wise, the whole 9 yards, wasn't even around 5 years ago when she was diagnosed.
Right. I'm on a line of treatment that didn't exist when I was diagnosed.
So the research
So only
goes
because
somewhere.
people before me have worked to raise money for metastatic breast cancer research is why I'm here. So I'm hopefully working to raise money for people down the road, but also myself. Because if I keep staying alive, I'm going to need more and new medicines to come out.
Absolutely.
And it's just really important to me. And I just so appreciate having friends who can work with us to not just raise money, but to raise awareness.
Absolutely.
And the NBC world, we talk about October, National Breast Cancer Month, as there's a lot of pink washing.
Yes.
You can't help it. You go down the grocery store aisle and you're going to see yogurt with like little pink caps and ribbons, and you're going to, on social media, you will see ads for t-shirts and mugs and everything. You have to be wise, a wise consumer, and read the fine print. If it says that they're donating towards breast cancer, how much, and specifically where.
Right.
Because what we'd prefer is that it goes to researching metastatic breast cancer, because that is the breast cancer that kills.
And that research then can trickle down. That can trickle down to the
Sure.
early stages.
If you research something that is helping metastatic breast cancer, then it sure is going to help stage 0, 1, 2, and 3. You can
Exactly.
be diagnosed stage 0 breast cancer.
Wow.
Yeah, they can
Did not
find
know that.
they can find the tiniest little tumors on a mammogram if you don't have dense breast tissue.
Right.
So there are lots of people. So if you help people like me, we're going to help everybody down the line.
Absolutely. And that's why we're so excited to partner with Mediviver to help raise some funds for the metastatic breast cancer.
I'm just so grateful for both of you for doing this.
It is an absolute treat. Thank you for coming all the way from Illinois down to North Carolina. Lovely to meet you.
It was so nice to meet you, and I really appreciate what you're doing to help, just like I appreciate what Greg's done to help. And we're trying to share my story, so it doesn't become a story of other people.
Else's. Absolutely. So we will have that link in everywhere. That link for the Light Up NBC auction will be in the video description. We will have it all on social media. I'm sure that Greg will have it with the power planner. So we will have it kind of everywhere. You're going to be sick of seeing us, but make sure that you tune in also on October the 13th, because that is when Mediviber does their live show, where that is their huge annual fundraiser where they tell stories, and they're going to feature you this year. So
and we have entertainers and musicians. I know Lisa Loeb is one of them for this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so if you are, because the Light Up NBC is where they light up landmarks. They literally light up the country with the green, the teal, and the pink that represents the metastatic breast cancer. That is the ribbon. And so make sure that you tune in on October the 13th. Again, we will have that link for you to check that out. But just know that every penny that you donate goes straight directly to stage 4 metastatic breast cancer research.
Yes.
Absolutely. So again, thank y'all for coming.
Thanks,
you so
Jenny.
much.
Absolutely. All right, my friends, thanks so much. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.